The Zephyrian Empire had ruled the Outer Rim territories for over 3,000 years. Their blue-scale bodies and towering height made them natural intimidators across the galaxy. When they discovered humans had settled on the mining world of Kepler 442b without permission, they saw it as nothing more than pest control. Captain Sarah Chun had been leading the human colony for 2 years. The settlement of New Shanghai housed nearly 50,000 civilians, farmers, miners, engineers, and their families who had fled Earth's overcrowded cities seeking a better life. They had followed all proper colonization protocols, filed the necessary paperwork with the Galactic Council, and paid their settlement fees. What they didn't know was that the Zephyrians had bribed council officials to bury their application. The attack came at dawn. Zephyrian warships descended from the crimson sky like metallic vultures. Their plasma cannons turned the settlement's defensive barriers to slag within minutes. Sarah watched helplessly from the command center as civilian shelters collapsed under orbital bombardment. The screams of children echoed through the communication channels. "All units, fall back to the underground bunkers," Sarah ordered into her headset. "Protect the civilians at all costs." Her security chief, Marcus Rodriguez, appeared on the screen. Blood trickled down his forehead. "Captain, they're not trying to kill us all. They're capturing people, taking them alive." Sarah's stomach dropped. The Zephyrians were known for their cruelty, but taking prisoners usually meant something worse than death. She grabbed her sidearm and made her way through the collapsing corridors. Emergency lighting flickered as explosions shook the building. Outside, Zephyrian soldiers in powered armor herded terrified humans into transport ships. Their weapons hummed with deadly energy as they shocked anyone who resisted. Sarah saw Mrs. Peterson, the colony's teacher, trying to shield a group of young children. A Zephyrian soldier struck her with an energy prod, sending her convulsing to the ground. "You bastards!" Sarah raised her weapon. A plasma bolt seared past her head, leaving a smoking crater in the wall behind her. 3 Zephyrian soldiers emerged from the smoke, their reptilian faces twisted in cruel amusement. Their leader, distinguished by golden shoulder plates, spoke in broken English. "Human female, you command here." Sarah kept her gun trained on them. "Captain Sarah Chun, Colonial Authority. This is a legal occupation of sovereign territory." The Zephyrian laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Sovereignty? You insects have no rights. This world belongs to the Empire now. The Galactic Council will dash. The Council does what we tell them." The alien gestured to his subordinates. "Take her alive. The others dispose of them." Sarah emptied her clip at the advancing soldiers. The energy rounds barely scratched their armor. A stun blast caught her in the chest, sending lightning through her nervous system. As consciousness faded, she heard the horrible sounds of execution, the wet thud of bodies hitting the ground, the terrified screams cut short. When she woke, Sarah found herself in a cramped metal cage aboard a Zephyrian ship. Around her, dozens of other human prisoners huddled in similar cells. She recognized many faces: Dr. Williams from the medical center, Engineer Jackson, who had helped build their water purification systems, young Tommy Martinez, who couldn't be more than 16. "Captain," Dr. Williams whispered from the adjacent cage. "Thank God you're alive. They killed so many." Sarah gripped the bars. "How many survivors?" "Maybe 200 out of 50,000. Williams' voice broke. "They executed the rest after loading us up. Called it pest control." The ship's intercom crackled with alien voices speaking in the Zephyrian tongue. Sarah had learned enough of their language during diplomatic training to catch fragments. Broadcast, example, inferior species. Hours passed in the dim cargo hold. Guards brought no food or water. Several elderly prisoners collapsed from dehydration. When little Emma Foster started crying for her parents, a Zephyrian soldier shocked her cage with an energy rod until she fell unconscious. "Animals," Dr. Williams muttered. Sarah studied the ship's layout through the small viewport in her cell. They were approaching a massive space station, the size of a small moon, with weapons arrays that could glass entire planets. Zephyrian banners displaying their 3-headed serpent symbol covered the hull. "That's Fortress Dominion," she realized. their military headquarters. The ship docked with a series of metallic clanks. Armored guards herded the prisoners through sterile corridors lined with propaganda displays showing Zephyrian conquests across the galaxy. Images of burning worlds and subjugated species made the Empire's message clear. Resistance was futile. They were brought to a vast amphitheater filled with cheering Zephyrians. Thousands of them packed the stands, their scaled faces alive with bloodlust. At the center sat a raised platform equipped with various torture devices and medical equipment. Massive screens hung overhead, broadcasting to what Sarah realized must be the entire galaxy. Supreme Commander Vextar took the podium. His scarred hide and ceremonial armor marked him as a veteran of countless conquests. When he spoke, translators rendered his words into dozens of languages. Citizens of the galaxy, behold the fate of those who defy the Empire. His voice boomed across the station. Today we demonstrate why humans are unfit to share space with superior beings. These insects dared to claim Zephyrian territory. They will serve as an example to any who would challenge our authority. Guards dragged Sarah onto the platform. Restraints locked around her wrists and ankles. She could see her face on the screens, broadcast to trillions across known space. Earth would be watching. Her family would be watching. This human called herself a captain, Vextar continued. She will learn that only Zephyrians deserve such titles. The first torture device activated, neural disruptors that sent agony through every nerve ending. Sarah bit back her scream, determined not to give them the satisfaction. The pain was unlike anything she had ever experienced, as if her bones were being dissolved in acid while her skin burned. Scream for us, insect, Vextar commanded. Show the galaxy how weak humans truly are. Sarah met his eyes with defiance. Go to hell. The crowd roared approval as Vextar increased the intensity. This time Sarah couldn't help herself. A raw scream tore from her throat. But even as tears streamed down her face, she kept her eyes locked on the camera. Let humanity see what the Empire was capable of. Let them see what they were truly fighting against. For 6 hours, the torture continued. They broke her fingers one by one. They used acid to burn patterns into her skin. They subjected her to psychological torment, forcing her to watch recorded footage of her colonists being executed. Through it all, the cameras kept rolling. Beg, Vextar demanded. Renounce your species, and perhaps we will grant you a quick death. Blood ran from Sarah's mouth, but her voice remained steady. Humans don't beg. The crowd's cheers turned to frustrated hisses. This wasn't going as planned. The human was supposed to break, to weep, and plead for mercy like so many other species had done. Instead, she endured each fresh agony with grim determination. Dr. Williams and the other prisoners were forced to watch from cages positioned around the amphitheater. Several had turned away, unable to bear seeing their captains suffering. But Sarah caught Williams' eye and nodded slightly. He understood. This wasn't just about her anymore. This was about showing the galaxy what humans were made of. On distant Earth, every screen in every city displayed the horrific broadcast. In military command centers, hardened generals wept openly as they watched one of their own being torn apart. But beneath the grief, something else was building, a cold, implacable rage that would soon consume everything in its path. As Sarah finally lost consciousness, her broken body barely recognizable, Vextar turned to the cameras with satisfaction. Let this be a lesson to all who would challenge Zephyrian supremacy. Humans are weak. Humans are inferior. And any who ally with them will share their fate. The broadcast ended, leaving billions across the galaxy in stunned silence. But in the depths of space, human warships were already changing course. Emergency sessions convened in Earth Parliament. Military reserves were activated across every human world. Sarah Chun had achieved something no diplomat or politician ever could. In her suffering, she had shown the galaxy the true face of the Zephyrian Empire. And in her defiance, she had lit a fire that would burn across the stars. The Zephyrians had made a critical mistake. They had tortured a human on live broadcast, believing it would demonstrate their power. Instead, they had just declared war on the most dangerous species in the galaxy, the one that had climbed from primitive hunter-gatherers to spacefaring civilization in less than 1,000 years. The one that never, ever forgave. As Sarah's unconscious form was dragged back to the cells, she couldn't know that her sacrifice had already begun to bear fruit. Across human space, a simple message was being transmitted on every military frequency. Remember Sarah-chan. Remember New Shanghai. No mercy. No surrender. Make them pay. The war would begin in less than 18 hours. And when it did, the Zephyrians would learn why every other species in the galaxy had learned to fear the humans' capacity for both love and hatred. They had awakened sleeping giants. And giants, once awakened, are very hard to put back to sleep. Admiral James Harrison had served in the Terran Defense Force for 37 years. He had fought pirates in the asteroid belt, defended colonies from alien raiders, and negotiated peace treaties with a dozen species. But nothing in his long career had prepared him for the rage coursing through his veins as he watched Captain Chen's torture broadcast. The recording had ended 6 hours ago, yet every screen in the TDF headquarters still displayed her final moments of consciousness. Blood streaming down her face, defiance burning in her eyes, even as her body failed. Harrison's staff officers stood around the holographic display table in stunned silence. Several were openly weeping. "Sir," Communications Officer Reynolds spoke with barely controlled emotion. "We're receiving transmission requests from every human colony and allied world. They want to know how we're going to respond." Harrison studied the tactical display showing Zephyrian territory. Fortress Dominion sat like a cancer in the center of their empire, surrounded by dozens of occupied worlds. Military analysts had always considered it impregnable. Its shields could withstand multiple planetary bombardments, and its defense fleet numbered in the thousands. "What's our current fleet status?" Harrison asked. Chief of Staff Admiral Martinez pulled up the numbers. "We have 237 active warships across all theaters. The Zephyrians have over 3,000. Conventional wisdom says we can't win a direct confrontation," Intelligence Director Cohen added. "Their technology is more advanced, their ships are bigger, and they've had centuries to fortify their positions." Harrison nodded slowly. "Conventional wisdom. But, tell me, Director, does conventional wisdom account for what humans do when someone hurts our family?" The room fell silent. Everyone understood what the Admiral was really asking. The Zephyrians had just made this personal for every human alive. This wasn't about territory or resources anymore. This was about the most dangerous emotion in the human arsenal, righteous fury. "Sir," Chief Engineer Walsh stepped forward. "I've been running calculations on Operation Prometheus. The project we shelved 5 years ago as too dangerous to deploy." Harrison's eyes sharpened. Prometheus had been humanity's answer to superior alien technology, experimental weapons that pushed the boundaries of physics itself. The project had been classified beyond even his security clearance, deemed too risky for actual deployment. "Explain." Walsh activated a classified hologram. "Quantum cascade torpedoes. They don't just destroy matter. They unravel the fundamental forces holding atoms together. One torpedo could chain react through an entire fleet." "The Environmental Council banned those weapons," Martinez objected. "They could sterilize entire star systems." "The Environmental Council isn't watching Captain Chun being tortured to death," Harrison replied coldly. "What else?" "Temporal displacement mines," Walsh continued. "They create localized time distortions. Enemy ships get caught in temporal loops or experience time dilation that ages their crews to death in seconds." "And the ghost ships?" Walsh's expression grew grim. "Project Wraith. Vessels that can phase in and out of normal space-time. Invisible to sensors, able to attack from parallel dimensions. We built 12 prototypes." Harrison stared at the classified schematics. Humanity had always been innovative, but these weapons represented something more, the dark creativity that emerged when humans faced extinction. They had built tools that could crack open reality itself. "Authorization codes?" he asked. "Only the President and The Council of Generals can authorize deployment. Then get them on the line. While Walsh coordinated with Earth's highest authorities, Harrison turned his attention to intelligence reports flooding in from across Zephyrian space. The enemy wasn't taking humanity's silence as submission. They were celebrating. Videos showed Zephyrian civilians cheering Chen's torture, sharing recordings of her screams as entertainment. Admiral, Intelligence Officer Park approached with a datapad. We've intercepted communications from Fortress Dominion. They're planning a victory parade. Commander Vextar wants to display Captain Chen's body as a trophy. The rage that swept through the room was almost tangible. Harrison felt something cold and deadly settle in his chest. These weren't warriors. They were sadists who enjoyed inflicting pain on helpless victims. Any word on the other prisoners? Still alive, sir. The Zephyrians are saving them for more broadcasts. They plan to execute one human every day until Earth formally surrenders. Harrison's hands clenched into fists. How many civilian casualties on New Shanghai? Preliminary reports suggest 47,800 dead. They didn't just kill colonists. They hunted down families hiding in shelters. Children, elderly, wounded, everyone. The communication screen lit up with President Morrison's face. Behind her stood the entire Council of Generals, their expressions granite hard. Admiral Harrison, the president began. We've seen the broadcasts. We've read the casualty reports. The council has voted unanimously. General Zhao stepped forward. Operation Prometheus is authorized. All experimental weapons are cleared for immediate deployment. No restrictions. No limitations. Madam President, Harrison said carefully. Some of these weapons could be considered war crimes under galactic law. President Morrison's expression didn't change. Admiral, they tortured one of our people to death for entertainment. They murdered 50,000 civilians. They're holding prisoners for public execution. As far as I'm concerned, galactic law died with Captain Chen. The authorization codes appeared on Harrison's screen. For the first time in human history, their most terrible weapons were cleared for combat deployment. Devices that could unravel matter itself, trap enemies in time loops, and phase warships through alternate dimensions. Sir, Communications Officer Reynolds interrupted. We're getting responses from allied species. The Centaurans are offering their fast attack squadrons. The Vegan Republic is mobilizing their carrier groups. Even the neutral Altarians want to contribute support vessels. Harrison raised an eyebrow. Why would neutrals risk war with the Empire? They saw the broadcast too, sir. Apparently, Captain Chen's defiance impressed them. Some species are calling her the human who would not break. Others are saying her courage showed them what real strength looks like. The tactical display updated to show allied fleet movements. Dozens of ships from 8 different species were converging on human space. It wasn't just a human war anymore. Captain Chen had inspired half the galaxy. Admiral Martinez, Harrison ordered, begin fleet mobilization. I want every combat-capable ship ready for departure in 12 hours. Load the experimental weapons, full combat deployment. Sir, what about Earth's defenses? Earth isn't the target. We're taking this fight to them. Chief Engineer Walsh looked up from his calculations. Admiral, the quantum cascade torpedoes are ready for loading. But, sir, once we use these weapons, there's no going back. We'll have crossed the line. Harrison studied the images of Captain Chen still displayed on the screens. Her broken body, her blood-soaked face, the defiance that never left her eyes. Around the room, his staff watched him with expectation. These were people who had dedicated their lives to protecting humanity. They had families on every human world, friends who might be the next targets. They crossed the line first, Harrison said quietly. They tortured our people for entertainment. They murdered civilians for sport. They think humans are weak because we usually try to solve conflicts peacefully. His voice grew harder. It's time to show them what humans do when peace fails. The next few hours became a blur of activity. Across human space, military installations hummed with preparations. Weapons that had existed only in classified files were loaded onto warships. Crews received briefings on technology that bent the laws of physics. Captain Jennifer Wu of the destroyer Retribution stared at the quantum cascade torpedo being loaded into her ship's forward tube. The weapon was beautiful in its simplicity, a chrome cylinder barely larger than a conventional warhead. Beautiful and absolutely terrifying. "Captain," her weapons officer asked nervously, "what happens when we fire this?" Wu consulted her classified briefing. "It creates a quantum cascade reaction that spreads through any matter it touches. Enemy ships, space stations, asteroids, everything in a 50-kilometer radius gets converted to pure energy." "What about our ships?" "We fire it and run like hell." Similar scenes played out across the fleet. Captain Roberts of the cruiser Vengeance watched temporal displacement mines being loaded into his ship's launch tubes. Commander Singh of the battleship Fury supervised the installation of phasing technology that would allow her ship to attack from parallel dimensions. But the crown jewel was Admiral Harrison's flagship, the dreadnought Righteous Anger. At 2 kilometers long and bristling with every experimental weapon in humanity's arsenal, it was less a ship than a mobile weapons platform designed to crack open entire fleets. "Admiral," his aide reported, "all ships report ready for departure. The fleet is assembled." Harrison looked out at the massive armada gathering in Earth's orbit. 400 warships from humanity and its allies, each loaded with weapons that could reshape the battlefield itself. But numbers weren't what made this fleet dangerous. It was the cold rage burning in every human heart. "Any final communications from the Zephyrians?" "Yes, sir. Commander Vextar sent a message to Earth demanding our immediate surrender. He says if we don't comply within 24 hours, he'll start executing the prisoners one by one." Harrison activated the fleet-wide communication system. Across 400 ships, every captain and crew member could hear his words. "Attention all vessels. 21 hours ago, the Zephyrian Empire tortured Captain Sarachun to death on live broadcast. They murdered 50,000 innocent civilians. They think this demonstration of cruelty will force humanity to submit." He paused, looking at the image of Chun that still dominated every screen. "They're about to learn why that was the worst mistake in their species' history. We're going to their fortress. We're going to rescue our people. And we're going to make them remember why the rest of the galaxy learned to respect humanity." His voice grew colder. "No prisoners. No mercy. No compromise. They want to see human strength? Let's show them what we do to monsters who hurt our family." The fleet began moving, 400 warships turning towards Zephyrian space like a dagger aimed at the heart of an empire. In the cargo holds, weapons that could unravel reality itself waited for deployment. On the bridges, crews prepared for the most terrible battle in human history. But in the depths of space, word was already spreading among other species. The humans were coming. The peaceful species that prefer diplomacy and trade was about to unleash its true nature. And every intelligent race in the galaxy knew the same truth. When humans stopped being civilized and started being savage, entire empires fell. The Zephyrians had awakened something that should have been left sleeping. Now they would face the full fury of humanity unleashed, guided by technology that could crack open stars themselves. The war was about to begin, and when it ended, the galaxy would never be the same. The journey to Zephyrian space took 18 hours of heartburn. As the human fleet approached the border, Admiral Harrison studied tactical reports from deep space reconnaissance drones. What he saw changed everything. "Sir," Intelligence Officer Park reported with barely concealed excitement, "the Zephyrians aren't taking our advance seriously. Their border fleets are still on routine patrol patterns. No additional reinforcements have been called to Fortress Dominion." Harrison frowned. "They know we're coming?" "Yes, sir. Our communications intercepts show they've been tracking our fleet since we left Earth. But they're treating this as a minor police action. Their military command believes 400 human ships pose no real threat to their empire." Chief of Staff Martinez shook his head in amazement. After 3,000 years of galactic domination, they can't conceive that anyone could actually challenge them. "Arrogance," Harrison muttered. "It's going to cost them everything." The tactical display showed the Zephyrian border defenses, a line of orbital weapons platforms, and patrol squadrons designed to intimidate rather than fight serious battles. For centuries, no species had dared challenge the Empire's territorial claims. The mere sight of Zephyrian warships was enough to send most fleets running. Admiral, Captain Wu's voice crackled over the communication system from the Retribution. Permission to test our new toys on the border stations? Harrison considered the request. The quantum cascade torpedoes were untested in real combat conditions. But if they were going to use them against Fortress Dominion, they needed to know how the weapons performed. Granted, select an isolated station for your test run. The border station designated Outpost 77 hung in space like a metallic spider, its weapons arrays tracking the approaching human fleet. 300 Zephyrian crew members manned its defenses, confident in their technological superiority. They had destroyed dozens of alien fleets over the centuries. On the bridge of the Retribution, Captain Wu watched her target through the main viewer. The station was impressive, heavily armored, bristling with plasma cannons, protected by energy shields that could deflect conventional attacks. Weapons, Wu ordered quietly. Load Quantum Cascade Torpedo, Tube 1. Her weapons officer hesitated. Captain, are you sure? The destruction radius could be 50 kilometers, I know. There are no friendly vessels in the area. Load the torpedo. The chrome cylinder slid into the firing tube with a soft hum. On Wu's targeting display, the Outpost 77 appeared as a red diamond surrounded by tactical data. Range, 42 kilometers. Target lock confirmed. Torpedo loaded and ready, Captain. Wu took a deep breath. This weapon represented the darkest side of human innovation. Technology born from rage and the desire for absolute victory. Once fired, it would announce to the galaxy that humanity had abandoned all restraint. Fire. The Quantum Cascade torpedo launched silently, accelerating toward its target at half the speed of light. To the Zephyrians on Outpost 77, it appeared as just another human projectile, primitive kinetic weaponry that their shields would easily deflect. The torpedo struck the station's energy barrier and passed through it as if it didn't exist. Quantum Cascade technology operated on a level below conventional matter. It attacked the fundamental forces that held atoms together. The explosion wasn't like anything in recorded military history. Instead of fire and debris, a sphere of pure annihilation expanded from the impact point. Every atom it touched simply ceased to exist, converted to energy in a chain reaction that spread through solid matter like a virus. Outpost 77 didn't explode. It vanished. 300 Zephyrian crew members, billions of tons of metal and ceramic weapon systems that had defended the border for decades. All of it converted to pure light in the space of 3 seconds. When the energy dissipated, nothing remained except a faint radioactive signature. Across the human fleet, stunned silence reigned. They had known the weapons were powerful, but seeing the reality was different from reading classified reports. A single torpedo had completely erased a military installation that could have held off conventional fleets for weeks. Jesus Christ, Wu whispered. What have we built? Admiral Harrison's voice cut through the silence on the communication channels. All ships maintain formation. We've just announced our intentions to the galaxy. There's no turning back now. On distant Fortress Dominion, alarms began screaming as sensors detected the massive energy release at the border. Supreme Commander Vextar stormed onto his command bridge, his scarred hide flushed with anger. What happened to Outpost 77, he demanded. His subordinate cowered. Sir, it's gone. The humans fired some kind of weapon. The entire station just vanished. Vextar studied the tactical display. A fading energy signature marked where one of his border stations had been. Around it, empty space stretched for 50 kilometers. Even nearby asteroids had been vaporized. Impossible. Human weapons are primitive. They use chemical explosives and kinetic projectiles. Sir, the energy readings suggest this was some kind of matter conversion technology. We've never seen anything like it. For the first time in his long military career, Vextar felt something he hadn't experienced since his youth: uncertainty. The humans had just demonstrated technology that surpassed anything in the Zephyrian arsenal. But surely it was just one experimental weapon, probably their only one. "Scramble the third fleet," he ordered. "Intercept the humans before they reach our core territories. I want those ships captured so we can study their technology." The third fleet was the pride of the Zephyrian Navy. 87 ships, including their newest dreadnought, the Dominion's Fist. It had never been defeated in battle, its plasma arrays capable of melting through any known armor. But as the Zephyrian fleet moved to intercept, they were about to encounter something unprecedented in their military history, an enemy that fought not for conquest or resources, but for vengeance. The human fleet detected the approaching Zephyrians while still 6 hours out from Fortress Dominion. Admiral Harrison studied the enemy formation with professional interest. The Zephyrian commander was competent. He had arranged his ships in a classic engagement pattern, heavy units in the center with fast attack craft on the flanks. "Standard Zephyrian tactics," Chief of Staff Martinez observed. "They'll try to overwhelm us with superior firepower." "Not today they won't," Harrison replied. He activated the fleet communication system. "All ships, prepare for combat deployment. Wraith Squadron, begin phasing procedures." Across the human fleet, 12 vessels began to shimmer and fade as their experimental cloaking systems activated. These were the ghost ships, vessels that could phase in and out of normal space-time, invisible to enemy sensors and able to attack from parallel dimensions. Captain Sarah Kim commanded the lead Wraith ship, the destroyer Phantom Strike. As her vessel phased into the parallel dimension, the universe took on an eerie quality. Stars became distant points of light, and space itself seemed to ripple like water. "Phasing complete," her navigator reported. "We are now invisible to their sensors." On the main display, the Zephyrian fleet appeared as ghostly outlines. Kim could see their formation, their weapon positions, even their crew members moving about their bridges. But they couldn't see her. "All Wraith vessels," Kim transmitted on the quantum communication channel. "Take positions behind enemy heavy cruisers. Prepare quantum cascade torpedoes." The ghost ships moved through their parallel dimension like deadly shadows, positioning themselves for a coordinated strike. The Zephyrians had no idea death was stalking them from another plane of existence. Admiral Thexvar commanded the Zephyrian Third Fleet from the bridge of the Dominion's Fist. His sensors showed the human fleet approaching in a standard formation. No advanced tactics, no attempt at deception. Just 400 ships flying straight toward his position like amateur pirates. "Humans," he said dismissively to his bridge crew. "No subtlety, no strategy. They think superior numbers will compensate for inferior technology." His tactical officer looked uncertain. "Sir, what about the weapon they used on Outpost 77? Should we maintain a more defensive formation?" Thexvar's tail lashed with irritation. "One experimental weapon does not make them a threat. Probably their only prototype. We'll destroy their fleet and take their ships as trophies." The two forces closed to weapons range. The Zephyrian fleet opened fire first, thousands of plasma bolts streaking across space toward the human ships. Several human vessels took hits, their shields flaring under the bombardment. But instead of returning fire, the human fleet suddenly scattered. Ships peeled off in different directions, using evasive maneuvers that seemed random and panicked. "Cowards!" Thexvar roared. "They're running. All ships pursue and destroy." The Zephyrian formation broke apart as ships chased individual human vessels. It was exactly what Admiral Harrison had hoped for. The enemy was abandoning their coordinated formation to pursue what appeared to be a routed enemy. "All Wraith vessels," Captain Kim transmitted from her parallel dimension. "Enemy fleet is dispersed. Begin attack run." The 12 ghost ships phased back into normal space-time directly behind the scattered Zephyrian vessels. They appeared as if materializing from thin air, their quantum cascade torpedoes already locked on a target. "Fire everything." 12 chrome torpedoes launched simultaneously, each one targeted at a different Zephyrian heavy cruiser. The enemy ships detected the attacks seconds before impact. Not nearly enough time to evade or raise additional shields. The quantum cascade effects rippled through space like flowers of destruction. 12 Zephyrian warships simply ceased to exist, converted to pure energy in expanding spheres of annihilation. The chain reactions consumed nearby fighters and support vessels, turning the Zephyrian fleet's greatest strength, their close formation, into a catastrophic weakness. Impossible. Fexvar stared at his tactical display as nearly a third of his fleet vanished in seconds. Where did they come from? Our sensors showed nothing. His science officer's voice shook with terror. Sir, they appeared from nowhere. It's like they were invisible. Then, suddenly, they were behind us. The human fleet had stopped running. Now they turned back toward the stunned Zephyrians with deadly purpose. Captain Roberts of the cruiser Vengeance targeted the enemy flagship with temporal displacement mines. Launching temporal warheads, he reported calmly. The mines deployed in a spread pattern around the Dominion's fist. When they detonated, they created localized time distortion fields that trapped the massive dreadnought in temporal loops. 1 second the ship was firing its weapons. The next it was repeating the same actions over and over as time folded in on itself. The crew aged rapidly as temporal fields accelerated time within their ship, while keeping the hull locked in a temporal bubble. In minutes, centuries passed for the trapped Zephyrians. Their bodies withered to dust while their ship remained perfectly preserved, a ghost vessel crewed by skeletal remains. What kind of monsters are these humans? Fexvar whispered as he watched his flagship die. Around him, his remaining ships tried to retreat, but the human fleet had anticipated this. They found themselves surrounded by enemies wielding weapons that defied every law of physics the Zephyrians understood. The battle lasted 47 minutes. When it ended, 87 Zephyrian warships had been reduced to 18 scattered survivors fleeing back toward their home territory. The human fleet hadn't lost a single vessel. Admiral Harrison studied the aftermath with grim satisfaction. Signal the surviving Zephyrian ships. Tell them to inform their supreme commander that we're coming for Fortress Dominion. Tell them we're coming for our people. And tell them that Captain Sarachun will be avenged. The message was transmitted on all frequencies, ensuring it would reach every Zephyrian military installation. Across their empire, commanders who had never known defeat stared at impossible battle reports. The humans had weapons that could erase matter itself, ships that could attack from other dimensions, and temporal technology that could trap enemies in time loops. For 3,000 years, the Zephyrian Empire had been the undisputed masters of the galaxy. But as human warships approached their greatest fortress, carrying weapons that could unravel reality itself, a terrible truth began to dawn on them. They had tortured the wrong species, and now the monsters they had awakened were coming for them with the fury of hell itself. Fortress Dominion loomed before the human fleet like a metallic moon, its surface bristling with thousands of weapon emplacements. The massive space station had never been successfully attacked in its 1,000-year history. Its shields could withstand the combined firepower of entire fleets, and its defense platforms could destroy approaching ships from light years away. Admiral Harrison studied the fortress through his flagship's main viewer. Intelligence reports indicated the station housed over 2 million Zephyrians, including their entire military command structure. It was also where Captain Chun and the surviving colonists were being held. Sir, Intelligence Officer Park reported, we're detecting massive troop movements within the fortress. They're mobilizing every available defender. How many ships in their defense fleet? 643 vessels, sir, including their entire First Fleet and Home Guard squadrons. Chief of Staff Martinez whistled low. They're not taking any chances. That's every warship they can spare. Harrison nodded grimly. The Zephyrians had learned from their Third Fleet's destruction. This time they weren't underestimating human capabilities. But neither were the humans making the same assumptions about Zephyrian defenses. Status on our experimental weapons? Chief Engineer Walsh consulted his datapad. Quantum cascade torpedoes fully loaded across all ships. Temporal displacement mines ready for deployment. Wraith squadrons standing by for phasing operations. He paused. Sir, we also have a new prototype ready. Harrison's expression darkened. The prototype was humanity's most terrible creation, a weapon so destructive that its very existence had been classified beyond even his security clearance until yesterday. Project Omega was designed to end wars by making them too horrible to contemplate. The planet killer? Yes, sir. One shot could crack Fortress Dominion like an egg. But, Admiral, Walsh hesitated. The collateral damage would be enormous. Any ships within 100,000 kilometers would be vaporized. That includes our rescue teams. Understood. Mark it as last resort only. The communications system crackled with an incoming transmission. Supreme Commander Vextar's scarred face appeared on the main screen, his reptilian features twisted with rage and barely concealed fear. Human Admiral, Vextar began without preamble. You have violated Zephyrian territory and destroyed our fleets with forbidden weapons. Withdraw immediately, or we will execute every human prisoner in our custody. Harrison met the alien commander's gaze without flinching. You tortured one of our people to death for entertainment. You murdered 50,000 innocent civilians. There will be no withdrawal. Then, watch your precious captain's friends die. Vextar's claws extended as he gestured off-screen. The transmission switched to the fortress's amphitheater. Dr. Williams was strapped to the same torture device that had killed Captain Shun, neural disruptors already activated. His screams echoed across the chamber as thousands of Zephyrians cheered. Stop this, Harrison commanded, but Vextar only laughed. Surrender your fleet or watch them all suffer. We have 200 humans left to kill. Harrison closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of command. Every fiber of his being wanted to save Dr. Williams and the other prisoners. But surrendering would only doom humanity to eventual extinction. The Zephyrians had shown their true nature. They were sadists who enjoyed causing pain. When Harrison opened his eyes, his expression had become ice-cold. Continue the torture, Commander. But understand that for every scream you force from our people, I'll make 10,000 of yours pay. Vextar's laughter died. Something in a human's tone chilled him to the bone. All ships, Harrison announced on the fleet frequency. Begin Operation Retribution. No prisoners. No mercy. No quarter given. The human fleet advanced toward Fortress Dominion like a wave of death itself. The Zephyrian defense fleet moved to intercept, their massive dreadnoughts leading the charge. Plasma cannons that could melt asteroids powered up for battle. But the humans didn't meet them in conventional combat. Captain Kim and her Wraith Squadron phased into their parallel dimension, becoming invisible to enemy sensors. From their otherworldly perspective, they could see the entire Zephyrian formation, 600 ships arranged in defensive layers around their fortress. Wraith leader to all vessels, Kim transmitted. Begin depenetration strike. Target their command ships. The 12 ghost ships moved through their parallel dimension like predators stalking prey. They bypassed the outer defensive lines entirely, phasing through multiple layers of shields and armor to position themselves inside the fortress's hangar base. When they re-emerged into normal space, they were literally inside the enemy station. Quantum cascade torpedoes fired at point-blank range into the fortress's internal structure, their chain reaction spreading through corridors and command centers. Whole sections of Fortress Dominion simply vanished. Control rooms, weapons platforms, entire decks filled with Zephyrian personnel, all converted to pure energy in expanding spheres of destruction. The station's mighty shields were useless against attacks originating from within. What's happening? Vextar screamed as his fortress shook around him. How are they attacking from inside our shields? His tactical officer stared at readings that made no sense. Sir, the humans are somehow materializing inside our structure. Our internal defenses are being systematically destroyed. On the main screen, Dr. Williams continued to suffer under the neural disruptors. But now his screams were joined by the wails of Zephyrian civilians as sections of their home station were annihilated. The Zephyrian defense fleet tried to turn back to defend their fortress, but Captain Roberts and the Temporal Warfare Division were waiting for them. Temporal displacement mines spread through the enemy formation like invisible cancer. When the mines detonated, they created pockets of accelerated time throughout the Zephyrian fleet. Some ships found themselves trapped in temporal loops, repeating the same few seconds of existence forever. Others experienced time dilation that aged their crews to death in minutes while leaving their vessels intact as tomb ships. The most horrible fate befell the dreadnought Empire's Pride. Caught in a temporal cascade that reversed the local time flow, its crew found themselves growing younger and younger until they reverted to their original genetic components. Living beings reduced to their most basic cellular structure while remaining conscious throughout the horrific transformation. Monsters! Vextar raged as he watched his fleets die. What kind of species builds such weapons? Admiral Harrison's face appeared on Vextar's screen, cold as deep space. The kind that remembers its family. The kind that never forgives. The kind you should never have crossed. The battle raged for 3 hours. Human ships with quantum cascade weaponry systematically dismantled the Zephyrian defense fleet, erasing entire squadrons with each torpedo. Wraith vessels continued their ghostly assault on Fortress Dominion's interior, phasing in and out of reality to strike at critical systems. But the fortress's massive structure absorbed tremendous damage before beginning to fail. Its armor was kilometers thick, its redundant systems designed to withstand planetary bombardment. Even with their experimental weapons, the humans were wearing it down slowly. Too slowly. Admiral, Communications Officer Reynolds reported with anguish. They've executed Dr. Williams. They're moving to the next prisoner. Harrison watched as Engineer Jackson was dragged to the torture platform. The young man who had helped build water purification systems for the new Shanghai colony now faced the same agonizing death as Captain Shen. "Sir," Chief Engineer Walsh said quietly, "we could end this now. The Omega device would crack the fortress in half. We'd save the remaining prisoners and vaporize our own rescue teams in the process." Harrison studied the tactical display. Fortress Dominion was wounded, but still fighting. Its weapons platforms continued to target human ships, and its shield generators were adapting to their quantum cascade attacks. There has to be another way. Captain Wu's voice crackled over the communication system from the Retribution. "Admiral, request permission for suicide run. I can phase my ship directly into their command center with a full load of quantum cascades." "Denied. We don't sacrifice our people." "Sir, with respect, they're torturing our people to death while we watch. Sometimes sacrifice is the only option." Harrison closed his eyes, feeling the weight of impossible choices. Every second they delayed, another human died in agony. But using the Omega device would kill the very people they were trying to save. "Wait," Intelligence Officer Park suddenly exclaimed. "Sir, I'm detecting a transmission from inside the fortress. It's on our emergency frequency." A new voice filled the bridge, weak, pain-filled, but unmistakably human. "This is Dr. Williams. Still alive. They think they killed me, but the neural disruptors malfunctioned. I'm playing dead." Harrison leaned forward. "Doctor, can you reach the other prisoners?" "Some of them. Maybe 20 survivors total. The rest are gone." Williams' voice broke. "Captain, they have us in the detention level, Section Gamma 7. But there's something else." I overheard guards talking. "This whole station, it's not just a fortress." "Explain." "It's a research facility. They've been experimenting on captured humans for years. Not just from our colony, there are others. Children, Admiral. They have children." The rage that swept through the human fleet was almost tangible. This wasn't just about Captain Shun or New Shanghai anymore. The Zephyrians had been using human beings as test subjects, torturing them in the name of scientific research. "How many?" Harrison asked, his voice deadly quiet. "I don't know. Hundreds, maybe thousands. Different levels of the station. Some of them have been here for years." Harrison felt something fundamental shift inside him. This changed everything. The Zephyrians weren't just brutal conquerors. They were monsters who experimented on helpless victims. The kind of evil that demanded absolute eradication. "All ships," he announced on the fleet frequency. "New intelligence indicates extensive human prisoner populations throughout Fortress Dominion. Prepare for full-scale boarding operations. Sir, Chief of Staff Martinez protested. Our Marines can't assault a station that size. The casualties would be enormous. Then, we don't send Marines. We send something else. Harrison turned to Chief Engineer Walsh. How many quantum cascade torpedoes do we have left? 47, sir. Load them all into our fastest ships. I want precision strikes on every section except the prisoner levels. We're going to carve this fortress apart piece by piece until only the detention sections remain. It was an impossible task. Surgical strikes against a target the size of a small moon while avoiding the very areas they needed to protect. But humanity had built impossible weapons, and now they would use them to perform impossible rescues. Admiral, Captain Kim reported from the Phantom Strike. Wraith Squadron can phase directly into the detention levels. We could begin extracting prisoners immediately. Do it. All other ships begin systematic bombardment. I want every Zephyrian weapon system, command center, and barracks reduced to component atoms. Leave only the prisoner sections intact. The final phase of the battle began. Wraith ships phased through solid matter to materialize in detention levels throughout the fortress, their crews working frantically to free human prisoners who had been tortured for years. Quantum cascade torpedoes fired with surgical precision, carving away the fortress's offensive capabilities while leaving its core structure intact. But as the human fleet closed in for the final assault, Supreme Commander Vextar prepared his last desperate gambit. If he couldn't defeat the humans, he would make sure they paid the ultimate price for their victory. Activate the station's self-destruct, he ordered his surviving officers. If we die, we take every human prisoner with us. The countdown began, 10 minutes until total annihilation. And Admiral Harrison realized that all their technological advantages meant nothing if they couldn't save the people they had come to rescue. The clock was ticking, and humanity's greatest test was just beginning.